Hello there, welcome back to another episode of WTF is AuDHD by Ellie and Paige. We're two neurodivergent sisters who were diagnosed with autism and ADHD very late. We were diagnosed late.
And we're here to educate.
Woo! I'm not wearing a bra and my boobs are shaking really hard.
Neither am I, but you would not be able to tell because mine are a tenth of the size of Ellie's.
Oh my God.
How awful are bras? Like,
No,
literally,
seriously.
I try to go like wear one sometimes because I'm like, well, I'm going to get saggy boobs. Who cares, first of all? I actually don't care. I'm embracing my sag. But who cares? But then I go like put one on and I'm like, I just can't.
No, it makes me so angry.
Oh my God, it overstimulates me, makes me angry, and it's just I'm constantly like, ugh, like pulling like.
So, like, bras though. Like, who invented them and why do we have to wear them?
And why?
Because I get maybe when you're playing sport, having to hold them and not have them like, bashing up and down. I get that. But on day-to-day basis, when I'm just sitting around on my ass, why do I have to wear a bra?
No, it is so stupid.
It is completely a patriarchal thing, in my opinion, that's been put on us to be, what is the word? Like, to be, what's the word? To be
like manicured?
Yeah, and like to be subtle. No, what's that word?
I don't know, like you're the wordsmith.
Oh
Hurry up.
no, I'm talking about like discreet is the word I'm trying to say. Is like it's about being discreet and don't distract the boys.
Free the nipple, mate. I literally go to work without a bra on and I just don't, like, literally hit me up. I will probably rant away.
See, I wish I could do that. Mine are a bit big. I mean, I could do it, but I'm too scared to go to work with my tits out.
No, this is the thing. It frustrates me because you could do that, but people would probably have something to say. Like, it just sucks because...
And people would look as well. This is the thing. I think that bras were made from the male lens, and I think they're there to basically hide and restrict us.
But then also push them up.
Yeah, and push them up, make them look better.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Oh my God, like, why? Anyway,
like, why?
Is this like the bra podcast?
No, but like, I feel like everyone listening who wears bras would probably relate to this,
oh
surely.
My God, like, I'm just so...
Like, why are we doing this?
Oh my God.
I feel really comfy right now.
It is so comfy and freeing.
Yeah, just hanging down there.
Oh my God, free the nip. I literally don't even mind a little bit of see-through. Like,
neither.
Oh my God, I think,
boys,
if fucking Bob at the beach can let his bloody tits out, I'm going to do it too.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Do your tits hang low?
Do they wobble to and fro?
Can you tie them in a knot? Can you tie them in a bow? Can you throw them over your shoulder? I can, you can't. No.
Oh my God.
Oh, well, anyway. So
wow.
This is not an episode about breasts, but this is an episode about autism and sensory sensitivities, which I guess it's a good segue.
It is.
Autism. What is it? That's a great question.
I don't even know.
We're coming at this. So today we're talking about autism and what it is. We're going to define it to an extent and just talk about little characteristics of it. Again, there's way more we could go into about autism, and it's a very broad spectrum. And this is not possibly going to represent everyone because everyone who is autistic is very different.
It's so complex.
So complex. And please always bear in mind that we're coming at this from the ADHD lens as well.
AuDHD, to the combination of both, which obviously means our manifestations of behavior can be seen as very different to someone that really does struggle with social situations and yeah.
Exactly right. So just stuff to bear in mind. And I will say as
well, by the way, I do struggle with social situations like really heavily.
Yeah.
But you probably wouldn't be able to tell that.
Because I also think your ADHD helps you there.
Yeah.
Like you're novelty seeking and you're loud and you're fun and so it masks it and it makes it look like you're absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But actually you're dying inside.
I'm dying inside.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Cheers.
So I've only been diagnosed with autism last April. So this is a 10-month-old diagnosis for me. And Paige, we've kind of, as we've mentioned, diagnosed her based on my diagnosis, but you're also currently getting screened by your psychiatrist.
Yeah, I got screened a few weeks ago and she was like, yes, that's rather high there for that one. We'll get your mum to fill out this questionnaire and then we'll go from there. Yeah. So, yes.
Yeah, so we're coming at this with quite fresh and new knowledge. Our ADHD, we were diagnosed with quite a few years ago now. So last week's episode about ADHD, we're probably a lot more knowledgeable on it, and we have thought about it a lot longer than we have the autism. So there may be gaps in our knowledge here, and please feel free to give us feedback on autism because, again, it's so different for everyone.
Yeah, we're not experts at all. We're just talking from our experience and what we've learned so far. So if you have anything to add, let us know. We've got a form on our link tree. Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. So autism or autism spectrum disorder is, again, a neurological and developmental condition. So you're born with it. And it affects how a person experiences the world. So it's about processing the world, emotions, senses. It influences our communication, social interactions, sensory processing, and the way we think, like our patterns of behavior and our thinking patterns. It is a spectrum, as we've mentioned before, but the spectrum is not linear. It doesn't go in a straight line. It is more round, and you can have lots of maybe sensory difficulties over here, but then you're not too bad with maybe social communication over here. Everyone's spectrum is different, and everyone, if you've met one autistic person, you've only met one autistic person.
Yeah, and when we say it's a spectrum, we don't mean that every human's on that spectrum.
No.
We mean that if you are autistic, there is a spectrum.
Yeah, it's literally how your brain is wired.
Yeah.
And now when you're younger, when you're born, you're a baby and you're born with lots of neural pathways, and it's called plasticity, where your brain's actually like not molded yet properly. The neural pathways are just firing off everywhere. And what happens in your first few years of life is that you go through what's called neural pruning, where your brain starts pruning neural pathways off that aren't needed. They start realizing, oh, that pathway's not needed, that pathway's not needed, that one's not needed. And then neurotypical people end up with these like clear pathways with a lot less. The thing with the thing with autistic people or autism is that the neural pruning doesn't happen as severely. So what happens is people with autism have way more neural pathways constantly firing off at once. So that's why when you walk into a room, say, and you're autistic, you're not just processing the person you're talking to. You're processing the lights. You're processing the sounds. You're processing the people over there. You're processing every single sense. You're processing their outfit. You're literally processing everything.
It is so overwhelming.
So overwhelming. And that is why you end up with a meltdown, because you just can't handle all of the information coming at you all at once. This is why we get overwhelmed.
I freeze a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my contribution.
So you froze there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
No, oh my God, exhibit A, seriously. I go to say a lot, and it actually shows on some of like the social clips, and I'm just like,
no, yeah, no, but
sorry.
Yeah, you freeze.
Yeah. I freeze because it's so much.
It's easier to ignore all of it, or try to ignore all of it, because you don't have the your brain can't handle how much it needs to process.
I know,
in that
but
moment.
It's like I'm not even trying to ignore it. It's like I'm not saying you, but it's like a natural thing where like my brain just goes into fucking wow wow wow, like the freaking dial-up sound, and it's just like offline, and it's like I got the little rainbow bloody.
Yeah, the rainbow wheel of death is what I usually call that one. Yeah,
so people are talking at me, and I'm like, yeah, and
panic.
I panic. I come out of a social situation, and I go, what just happened?
What did I say?
What did they say? Who did I see? They're gonna think I'm weird because. Yeah,
you're just in survival mode.
Yeah,
like literally.
I literally am in survival.
Yeah, and that's why some people like who are autistic, they go into a supermarket and it's too much, and people go, "Oh, you're being dramatic. You're being a drama queen."
Oh, I wear my headphones, and it's like game changers, guys. Pages pointers. This is a great one. Literally, I've got a few pointers where that came from. Pages pointers, and that's one of them. I know a lot of people do this already, but seriously, if you struggle with that, go to the supermarket with your noise cancelling headphones on, and it just is alleviating.
It is.
And I mean, I am probably that person that's, standing in the aisle, and if someone's like, excuse me, which is also the fear of being perceived. But also I'm at that point now, I'm at that age, a bit more mature, and I'm starting to unmask, and I'm just like, you know what? Walk around.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
No, amen.
Great pages pointers. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Now, autism comes in 3 levels. We have touched on this very, very vaguely, but there's 3 levels of autism. Level 1 is just requiring support, and that used to be called Asperger's syndrome, which we no longer use. Level 2 is requiring substantial support, and then level 3 is requiring very substantial support. So it's basically level of support needed. They're still the same condition, and it's not to say that any of those levels are more intelligent or less intelligent than the others either.
No.
Because someone who has high support needs, very high support needs, or is at level 3 autism, they may not be able to use language. They may not be able to speak, but they could be really, really good at
intelligent in other ways. Yeah,
exactly. They might be really good at puzzles, or really good at drawing. Yeah, or really they've got skills elsewhere that aren't necessarily language based, but are more visual based.
Yeah,
this is the thing about autism. People have a bad connotation with people who are autistic at level 3, but it's because from the neurotypical capitalistic lens, they're not able to do what society thinks they should do.
Yeah.
But they could be like the best artists in the world, creating the best art in their basement, and you wouldn't even know.
So intelligent. Yeah.
So intelligent.
And so we need to get rid of that perception, that all that stereotype that people seem to have, because...
Yeah, the autism is not as a lack of intelligence, or
it's definitely not.
It's not at all.
It's just the world has categorized people based on how much their needs are impacting others.
Yeah, that's actually what it is.
Yeah.
Level 1 autism is seen as like Asperger's is like socially acceptable because we don't put our needs on others. This is all in like speech marks. I'm not saying that like this is true, but I often think that people judge people who are autistic based on how much their needs impact the wider world.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that way, because also then people who are high maskers like us at level 1, we then end up taking the cost internally.
Yes.
Because we realize that we're going to be painful. So then we internalize all of it and we make sure that we don't need support.
Yeah.
And we're lucky enough to not need too much support as well.
Yeah.
There's huge differences. And I think we should get people on who are different levels of autistic eventually on this podcast, because there's such different experiences. And again, we're coming from
this is why it's so complex to talk about. So if you have anything to add,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We used to say high functioning and low functioning, but they're outdated terms now, because if you really think about it, those two terms are pretty they're bad connotations.
Yeah.
Like high functioning is what we would have been classed as, but how do you even define functioning? Because yes, I'm high functioning in an office space and I go in and I do my job.
Because you look like you are, but internally
I'm depressed and have really bad mental health. And then low functioning is only judged, again, based on neurotypical standards.
How they perceive you.
Yeah.
And how you contribute to their, not theirs, but like the world.
Yeah, exactly. So those terms are outdated. It is now just the levels of requiring support and substantial support, etc. I also just want to come out and say autism is not caused by vaccinations. That is false. That is false. Like, please, that is not a thing. It is genetic, it's neurological, and you are born with it. And that's always been that's been a theory for many years. It was debunked years ago, but there are still people in leadership roles at the moment coming out and saying things like this. I'm not going to name them, but there are people coming out and saying that, all these people are bloody being diagnosed with autism now. It must be the vaccines. No, it's not. It's the knowledge we now have, and we're getting way more educated, and we now realize what autism actually is, and it can look very different in low masking versus high masking, men versus women.
People are just finally getting the help that they need and not internalizing it all and ending up trigger warning, like abusing their bodies or committing suicide. Like literally. And so people are getting diagnosed with it, thank goodness, because it saves lives.
It does.
And that's why it seems like so many people are getting diagnosed, because we know about it now and people are able to get the help that they need.
Yeah, exactly. I think also people say that it's just something you can have as a kid. Again, not true. You're autistic for your whole life. Like if you're born with it, you stay with autism. Like it's who you are. It's how your brain's wired. I also just want to debunk another myth that autistic people lack empathy. It's not true. It's actually not true.
Heck no.
And many autistic people actually have hyper empathy, like really big amounts of it. But the difference is that we communicate differently. So we may not communicate our empathy, but we're still feeling it.
Yeah.
We just don't have the same language. Some people have different language styles to neurotypical people. And so they think we're not empathetic, but actually we're feeling it all. We just don't know how to express it.
And I think, can I just add to that, is like a learned behavior of that, or trait that tends to be related to neurodivergent people, is justice sensitivity. Men, you have it horrifically. And I know a few other people who are also neurodivergent, close friends of ours, who also have justice sensitivity. And do you reckon that, I don't know, I'm theorizing here, but it comes from the fact that we feel empathy so deeply. So when we see someone being mistreated, or we see a group of people being mistreated, like just like I'm a bloody warrior, keyboard warrior on my stories because it seems just silly, but it just triggers me so hard. Do you reckon that could be?
I think we also have, often autistic people have black and white thinking in a way of it's either one or the other, and I think we just have very strong morals. It's actually what it comes down to, is we have strong morals and we have strong values. We're very set in who we are, and therefore when we see an injustice happening, we cannot help but say something or try and stop it. I think it's to do with how strong our neural pathways are. This is another thing. We have a lot of neural pathways and they're really strong, and that's why monotropism is the idea that autistic people can only focus on one thing at a time. So someone who's autistic might be drawing, and you can try and talk to them and they won't respond because they actually can't hear you, because they're monotropic and they're literally focused on this one thing. at one time very intensely because that neural pathway is so intense that you can't snap them out of it. And it looks like they're being rude, but actually they're not. They're just focused on one thing at a time.
Yeah. Nah, totes.
Some people with autism or who are autistic are nonverbal. But again, that's what we were talking about before. It's not because they lack intelligence. It's just genuinely their brain is wired differently and they don't have the language that the skills of the language that we've produced as a society, but they have other ways of expressing themselves.
Can I just point on that is that, like I said this a few episodes ago, but looking back on footage of me, I wasn't fully mute, of course, but I was seriously like quite nonverbal. Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, unless I was having a meltdown and I was screaming.
Yeah,
and
when you needed needs.
Not with words. I was, screaming, because I needed my needs met. Other than that, I actually didn't speak a lot at all, even though I knew someone was talking at me. Hey.
You were focused on whatever you were doing instead.
No.
And then there's me, who's the opposite, where I was hyperverbal and I would just talk, still do today. I hear you exhibit A on the podcast here. I just talk and talk and talk. So that's another misconception of autism, that they're all mute and that I can't talk. It's not true. I'm one of the most hyperverbal people ever.
Yeah.
I also have ADHD, but I also think that I have a lot of neural pathways constantly going off. So I have so many thoughts that I want to get out of my brain. Also, another myth is that autistic people don't want friends or relationships.
It's such a myth. I want friends. I yearn for connection, but I struggle in social situations. I say this to Ellie a lot. This has been the biggest struggle of my life, is that I yearn for connection, but I struggle in social situations. So I feel like I'm in this no man's land of being really sad.
Yeah.
Of like wanting, I see, groups of girls like going, having brunch together and, oh my God. And I'm like, oh, I wish I want that. But if I was actually in that situation, I'd be very stressed. I'd be overwhelmed by the fan, the bloody
lights,
the lights, like everything. And I would actually not enjoy it.
No.
So it's such a weird, hard place to be. I've struggled with that my whole life, and I'm with my friends. I love them dearly, but they'll attest to this, that I'm like all in. Like I won't see them or catch up with them for months on end.
Yeah.
And then I'll have this realization. I'm like, oh my God, I need to see my friends. I love my friends. And I'll be, oh my God, catch up, blah, blah. And then I'm all in. And then I'll disappear for another few months.
Yes. Or you'll even organise it. And then the day I'll go, I can't do it. I can't do it. But you want to do it.
I do want to do it.
It's such a mind F.
And, and then I get very self-conscious because I'm a people pleaser as well. I get very self-conscious about my friends then thinking badly of me. Not that they would, because they're true friends, but like then going, oh, I hope they don't think it's because I don't want to hang out with them.
Yeah.
It's not that.
Yeah.
It's such a weird...
It's so hard to communicate that. And I think we've both lost friendships because of that.
Yeah.
Because we've probably been perceived to not keep in touch enough.
Yeah.
And again, I love all my friends who are... Any friend listening to this who has been a friend of mine, I love you to the death.
Me
and
too.
I always will.
Yeah.
But if I haven't kept in touch with you, it's really not conscious. Also with the ADHD, I think that affects us too, because the object permanence thing. Like if we don't see a friend for ages, it's not that I don't think about them, but I kind of forget they exist in a nice way.
No, yeah.
It's not because I hate them and I don't like them anymore. It's like there's a double-edged sword going on here where the object permanence is out of sight, out of mind, plus actually going to organise and see them is quite overwhelming for me.
Yes.
So it's really sad because a lot of autistic people do want friends and need friends, but we don't communicate in the same ways. And I think this is a really interesting, they call it the double empathy problem, where we get told by psychiatrists that autistic people don't know how to communicate and have social struggles and communication issues. But really, who's in the right here? We communicate with honesty, black and white thinking, and we get told that we might be a bit abrupt or a bit rude or a number of examples like that. Why is the neurotypical way the right way? They speak in codes and with small talk and like sayings and things that we don't understand the meaning, and we also take things really literally too. So if you tell us something, we're going to actually believe that, and we don't know if you're joking or not.
Sorry to stop your flow, but I used to get told that I was very gullible.
Same.
And I that sort of innocence side of me, bless everyone, but like at work, at my job I used to work at, it used to be like I was the butt of the joke. The butt of the joke, because I would believe people when they would say something, and it would be like, I don't know how to explain it. Yeah,
people who are autistic get bullied like this because we're easy targets, because we believe you. We expect that everyone thinks the same way we do, and that we should trust everyone because I'm trustworthy. Yeah. And then we are the victim of bullying often.
I'm just like, why would I not believe someone when they tell me something? I'm like, oh, really? And it happened a lot.
Yeah.
It had no it's all good. But it's just like, it was very stressful for me.
Very stressful.
And not knowing what was true and what was a joke. And then it would be like, nah, just jokes. And it's like, oh, okay.
And you've just been taking on this emotional journey for what? For a bit of a laugh out of them? It's not, it happened to me too. And so this double empathy problem is a real issue where the responsibility gets put on the autistic person. You don't communicate properly. You're too blunt. When really, it's just a neurodevelopmental condition. It's a diversity in the brain. So why have we made that one the standard? Why is ours not the standard?
I know.
We just need to be better at trying to communicate with each other. Yeah. And no one's in the wrong. Autistic person's not in the wrong. Neurotypical person's not in the wrong.
There's just different ways of communicating.
Yeah. And I think we need to really try as a society sort that out and realize that autistic people are amazing, but they just communicate differently. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. And small talk can actually suck it. I hate
What's the
small
point?
talk. Oh
What's
my
the point?
I'd rather meet someone and go, hey, what's your name? Cool, I'm Paige. Hey, what's like your biggest childhood trauma that we can like get into and like cure?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what sets your soul on fire? What are you passionate about?
Yeah.
And we're not like, oh, so where do you work?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fuck.
Oh, it's so boring.
It's so boring.
Yeah. But we want to have meaningful conversations is essentially what you're saying, eh? Like we want things to be to matter, and I want to know why about things, and I want to get in the deep.
Need to know the why of things.
Yeah, and I think that's why again we struggle with friends because I want to talk about real issues, and then everyone else is it's more surface level, and this is not shitting on anyone, but it's true. Like I always felt like I didn't quite connect with people because I was almost thinking on a different level to them, and not a higher level. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone, but I was processing a lot more, and this is another point of autism is we have often delayed emotional processing. And we've spoken about this before, but we might take 3 days to 3 weeks to 3 months to process something. And it's not because it's a lack of intelligence. Once again, not a lack of intelligence. If anything, we have so much going on in our brain, so many neural pathways happening that it takes us longer to process information because we're processing more.
Yeah.
And people think that we're dumb or slow, but it's not. We're actually processing so much more information than other people are at the same time.
Yeah. And then when you finally not figure it out, but like the rumination is intense.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll speak from my experience. I ruminate over the same thing and have literally conversations out loud to myself at home.
Me too.
And like in the shower and like I reenact a situation and say what I would have said if they had said that and then rebut them. And it's actually, that's like my life.
Yeah, me too.
I said this to someone the other day. I think I've realized I spend like 90% of my life in my brain. Like that sounds ridiculous because everyone's in their brain because you are but not being present in the physical moment with who you're with. I have spent a lot of my time in my brain thinking, catastrophizing, ruminating. Anyway.
No, exactly. I'm the same. And that's why we also, I think with the ADHD, we are inattentive.
Yeah.
So we're not really there because we're actually just constantly in our brain all the time. And I used to, daydreaming. I'd be daydreaming. But I was actually just like in intense thought and thinking about a number of different things all at once. So yeah, autistic people process things a lot more deeply and there's a lot more to process all at once. Hence why we have a meltdown because the executive function shits itself and it can't process it all at once and we feel a lot of pressure to react instantly and we don't know how to.
No.
So sometimes we do need time away after a social situation to just decompress.
This is a personal story. Recently I went and visited my best friend in Canada and we went and had a beach day. And it was a huge big day in the sun for like 6 hours already. That were like my, needs were, it was a lot. And I get home back to her place and I just have a full on meltdown. And I hate that because it was in front of people, but I had no energy left to mask anything. And she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I couldn't speak. I could not speak, could not articulate it, could not anything. And I was just kind of having like a, not panic attack fully, but crying and just melting down. And now I look back and I was just, it was just a big day and it was overwhelming and it was very social. There was so many different people I met that day. It was hot. I was probably dehydrated and I got home and I just felt so panicked.
Yeah.
I couldn't describe. I couldn't verbalize it.
Yeah. It's very stressful.
It was stressful and bless her, Brooke, she wanted to help and she was like, "What? Talk to me, love you." And I was like, yeah. But now I since know why, and I didn't know at the time. And I talked to her about that. So it's good having good friends.
Yeah, who understand
and love you for who you are. Help.
And yeah, you don't always have to explain why you had a meltdown, because sometimes you actually don't really know.
I didn't know.
Yeah, you can kind of like suspect it, but you just
like,
have one.
It was just like a visceral, full everything, emotional body, everything response to whatever it was. That it was just all too much, and it just Yeah,
I think it's your nervous system trying to actually probably just reset itself.
Yeah,
because after that you kind of feel a bit better, like you kind of
yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, autism is a real nervous system thing too. Like there's theories that it comes from having a sensitive amygdala, which is the fight or flight area. And so therefore when you just have way less emotional regulation and your nervous system is just a lot more sensitive, and you do need to cry it out, or you do need to have these meltdowns, because that is your body just trying to reset itself and release all the yucky chemicals that are circling your brain. Let them out. Let yourself melt down. It is so important.
Yeah.
And if you're exhausted after social situations, it's not because you're bad at them. It's because there was so much to process. Most people who are neurotypical are sitting there just having this one conversation, and they're focused on this one thing right now, blah, 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 blah. But autistic people are lights, fans, noises, sweaty on the seat, someone's close to me, I don't like people touching me, and even my personal space feels encroached on, forcing eye contact for ages. Often autistic people and ADHD people struggle with eye contact. And often it's, for me, it's two things. I think better, and I'm better at putting my words together when I'm looking away, because I'm almost like looking into my brain to try and get my point.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And then the other thing is I find eye contact really visually intense. Like it's almost like an overstimulation visually of me looking into someone's eyes, and it does not feel comfortable.
No, I don't actually look. I'm giving myself away here.
No, neither.
But I almost like, it's almost like I'm looking at them too much, and so you look away again. And it's like this battle. I see memes about it, but it's so true. I'm just like, oh, too much.
Yeah.
Okay, you should look back now. And I actually end up not even looking in their eyes. I'm like looking at like a bloody freckle on their face, or like I'm looking at like their bloody nose hairs right now, Ellie.
Same. Thanks. No, yeah, well, thank you. No, same. But I'm often actually looking at their mouth, because I've realized that I realized this during COVID. I'm actually a lip reader, and I didn't realize this. And I think it's because a lot of people with ADHD and autism, I think, have auditory processing issues. So we actually struggle to hear things and process them. That's why listening can be quite hard for us.
Oh, yeah.
I realized that I'm actually lip reading a lot of the time, and that's how I'm getting the information. I'm not looking them in the eye. I'm looking at their mouth. I'm lip reading. And when we had COVID and we all had to wear masks. My communication during COVID, I was stressed.
Oh, no, man. I also, same.
I didn't realize how much I was lip reading until I couldn't lip read.
Or like the combination of both, having them was like so valuable. And like I'll go to my doctor and I'll be like, what is she saying?
Yeah, no, I couldn't focus.
Yeah.
And
it takes me like 3 or 4 seconds to actually absorb what someone has said. And so sometimes I'll say pardon before, I'll say
impulsively
pardon, and then they'll go to answer, and I'll be like, oh, blah, blah. They're like, didn't you just say pardon? I'm like, oh, yeah, sorry. You know.
Yeah. No, exactly. I also, with COVID was a big sign for me too that I was autistic. This is where I started thinking I could be. Because lockdowns in New Zealand, they were very intense. They were quite a long time, and they were very hard on people, and it was a really stressful time in history. And I'm not belittling people's experiences, because some people's experiences in COVID were horrific.
Insane.
However, I just quietly, I quite enjoyed lockdown. And this is where I started going, hang on, why am I enjoying lockdown? And it's because I realized there were no demands on me. I could stay in my own environment, so I had control over it. I didn't have to mask and go and see people. If people text me, I knew that I couldn't see them. So I didn't have to make up an excuse, or I didn't have any commitments. And I was so happy in lockdown. I actually started having really bad anxiety when it was not lockdown, because I then came back into the demands. And it was when I came back into the demands that I really started noticing, I think I'm autistic.
Yeah, no, agreed. I realized I got really, really bad anxiety. I always had anxiety, but even my best friend noticed this. I talked to her recently about it. She's like, yeah, at about 26 or whatever, my anxiety got really bad, and even she noticed a change in me. And it probably was just like a combination of a lot of things, but it was around the time of COVID and coming back to reality.
Yeah, that was quite, I think a lot of people had that whole experience.
Yeah.
I mean, people realize they're neurodivergent. after COVID, because it was such a weird time, and your demands were taken away. And then I think people with ADHD might have realized they had ADHD because they were bored
and
they
not motivated, or not able to get their work done if they were still working.
Exactly, because you had to work from home, some people, and that was a new experience. That was a really weird time. But
so weird.
Yeah, I realized I was lip reading a lot and not actually listening and not looking them in the eye.
Yeah.
Another thing about autistic people is with ADHD, you have a lot of special interests, but often they are quick and then they go. So you're like interested in something, hyper focus, dopamine. I'm getting so much dopamine from this new subject that I love, and then it dies out and you're done. Autism
That's been my whole life.
Yeah. We've talked about your graveyard of Instagram pages.
Oh my God, I'm up at about 18.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah. Whereas autism mainly has people with autism mainly have long-term special interests, so they might know like every single thing about one subject. And again, that comes back to the intense neural pathways that we have. We can get fascinated by a subject and we literally learn every single detail about it, and then we info dump, because that's how we communicate with people. We like to teach people stuff and tell them about stuff, and then other people might think, oh, she's boring me again with her Formula One chat, but that's me actually trying to bond with someone. And I know all the stuff because I find it really interesting.
Yeah, and we get off on like a million tangents because every tangent is very relevant to the main story.
And it has another tangent.
Oh my God, it is so important. And if someone tries to stop that and go, is that really, and I'm like, no, it is.
Yeah.
And then I tell the punchline and they're like, how was that? And I'm like, it is. Just trust me.
Go on the journey with me, please.
Yeah, just let me.
So yes, intense special interests are often a huge clue that someone's autistic. And then there's the stimming, which we've talked about, which is a self-regulating behavior, and I think that's almost a stress response too. It's them autistic people trying to regulate ourselves. So we've got the stimming, and the repetitive movements is often part of autism as well. And I think that's a self-regulatory thing. And I think maybe it becomes habits as well. Just you end up that's how you calm yourself down. One of the biggest things about autism versus neurotypical people is top-down versus bottom-up processing. So neurotypical people generally, when they walk into a room or they come into a new piece of information, they will process that from the top down. They'll bring in knowledge they already have about it and fill the gaps in. And so they don't really think too deeply about the restaurant they've just walked into. For example, it's like, oh yeah, there's a restaurant, there's the menus, there's where I'll sit, blah, blah, blah.
Oh my God.
Autistic people, we process things bottom up. So we start with the sensory stuff. Oh, this is quite loud in here. Oh, it's quite bright in here. Blah, 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 blah. So we're actually processing everything from the bottom. Then we work our way up. And this is another reason why we take longer to process things, and also why autistic people often have such good attention to detail, because we're actually processing everything all at once from the bottom. So we're kind of the opposite of neurotypical people when we're processing things. And that's why often there can be a clash there. But neurotypical people are kind of processing and getting rid of all the bullshit they don't need to know, whereas autistic people often bottom up. It's the baseline first. How do I feel right now? What am I sensing right now? Then that's why we look at the menu before we go to a restaurant sometimes, because we just need to know that information first. Otherwise, it's all too overwhelming.
I also always have to know the parking situation.
Yeah, me too.
And that might be like kind of like a normal thing. But if it's like too overwhelming, that could be enough to make me not want to go.
Yeah, exactly. Me too.
Yeah.
But for me, the stress in life for me is often logistics.
Yeah, logistics.
That's
100%.
the thing. All those little tasks and not knowing how hot it's going to be, how cold it's going to be, how loud it's going to be, all that kind of stuff really stresses me out. So with this top down and bottom up processing, autistic people often rely on that bottom up processing and focus on details first before they see the bigger picture.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we see all the detail and everyone's like, why are you looking at the detail? Like, Ellie, why are you worrying about that minor part of this thing? We just need to do this. And I'm like, yeah, but have you thought about all these things though that are going to affect that thing?
Oh, I think this happened to me the last couple of weeks. It's a great example, I guess. One of my really good friends' 30th birthdays was in Mount Maunganui. And I of course really wanted to go, like 100% wanted to go. And I think most people go, oh yeah, cool, we'll leave at this time on Friday and we'll go there, got our mattress, sweet, got our shit, let's go. I had the biggest meltdown on the Thursday or Friday before I was meant to go. Bless my friends that were great with me and they understood me and said they know how I work, so they completely understood. But it was because I sent a massive message explaining trying to ask questions about the sleeping arrangements. Will there be like the amount of questions I had to make sure that if I went, that all my needs were met, because it was so scary and overwhelming for me that I ended up just having a meltdown over it. I ended up not going. And that's really sad, because I, of course, would love to go one of my best friend's 30th birthdays. But everything that came in and around that, I was, like you say, analysing everything from the ground up. And going, okay, so 3 hours of travel, so that means, I can't even verbalize it, but it was just every single detail that could possibly be linked to that whole thing was
you're thinking about it,
how that was like, ooh,
it's so overwhelming. It's so overwhelming.
And also, I will say, I noticed that this is a teen spare neurodivergent thing. I didn't realize it was until I obviously learned more about it. But when I go places, even to our cousin's house, which is a 20-minute drive away, I will literally pack an entire backpack with everything I could possibly think that I might need while I'm there.
Yeah.
And I always do that.
Yeah. Same.
And now I realize it's because I pack for every possible situation that I'm overwhelmed. So therefore I need my headphones. So therefore I need da-da-da-da. I've got my drawing pad, because literally drawing soothes me, and I'm an artist, and and is that kind of it?
No, it is.
Yeah.
You're processing everything all at once. There's so many factors to take into account, but then a neurotypical person be like, all right, jump in the car, we're off to Mount Maunganui for the weekend, see ya.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, because your sensory issues are actually a massive thing.
Yeah.
And that's going to affect you and the way you feel, and therefore your behavior and how you're going to act in those social situations. And then people are watching you and perceiving you, and it's just too much.
Yeah.
So that bottom up versus top down thinking is where a lot of the clashing happens. And I often need to know why we're doing something in a workplace, why. And someone might give me a task, and I just can't do that task until I know what the goal is, why we're doing it, how to do it. And I think people find autistic people, we get known to be annoying because we're questioning everything, but it's not because we don't trust you. It's just we need to know all the information first.
Yeah, definitely.
So with that top down, bottom up thing, with sensory perception, for example, a neurotypical person can just filter out the background noise and focus on the conversation. But an autistic person notices every sound, texture, light, and everything. So they're unable to focus on that conversation. Then there's social interaction. When we're talking to people, neurotypical people use top-down processing, past experiences, and then they fill in the gaps. Like if they need to read between the lines in conversation, they can do that. Whereas we're focusing on the exact words and what they're saying in that moment rather than the implied meaning. And so therefore we're gullible, or we trust someone because we just take what they're saying at face value when maybe there was a bit of sarcasm there and we don't realize it. Problem solving. Neurotypical people would use general rules and intuition to make a quick decision, whereas we would sit there and analyze every piece of information. Even if we've seen this puzzle before, we'd still analyze all of it before we make that decision. And then lastly, like creativity and learning, we can neurotypical people can see patterns and make connections quite quickly, whereas we would notice unique details that others might miss. We're just processing everything on a real deep level constantly. And that's why we get overwhelmed as someone with autism.
I feel like nothing's straightforward in my mind. Like, for example, the other day, I'm a designer and there's obviously Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop. And my boss, bless, Christy, you're the man. You're the woman, the boss woman. She goes, Paige, Illustrator or Photoshop? And so most people can just like fire off, you know. And I was like, well, under what circumstances? Like, in what context? Like,
no, exactly.
Like, it's like, I don't know. Well, if I'm making this type of piece of design, then da-da-da-da-da. And if I da-da-da-da. But I think most people would just answer the question based on their favorite app that they like to use. I think that was the point of the question in hindsight.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, what do you prefer? Like, what's your fave? And then it's, for me, it's like, well, I don't really have a fave. It just depends what I'm using it, what I'm doing it for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is also what happens, I think, when people get screened for autism. One of the clues, I think, is if the person is asking questions like that during the assessment, it often can mean they're autistic. So there's a question that comes up in autism screening tests, which is, would you rather go to the library or go to a party?
That is so complex to me. I'm like, wait. So is it a Saturday night?
Yeah.
Saturday.
Who's there?
Who's there?
Is there music? Am I at the library using a book that I'm enjoying, or am I just sitting in the corner? So I would question this one question, which is meant to be, yes or no, or one or the other.
Well, like, it really depends.
And this is why I think screening for autism is really complex, because we think about everything on 20 different neural pathways just based on one simple question. And I think that's often one of the biggest clues for screeners when psychologists are talking to people and trying to work up the autistic. If the response is, yeah, but what context is this? And what have I been doing the day before? Then that's quite a clue that they could have autism.
You know, as we said, I recently got screened and that was me. I was like, but so hang on, wait, when did, and she was just, it's so funny.
Yeah, we just have very complex brains and neural pathways, and the pruning is not as intense as a neurotypical person. But it is, you are born with it. It's a neurodevelopmental difference, and it's, again, the way your brain's wired. And I think that, again, autism has a place in society, and I think a lot of the most successful people in the world are autistic, like Eminem. You know, he's got an intense focus on words and lyrics, and he just writes stuff down, and he's become one of the best rappers of all time. And then you've got,
that's his special interest, is like words and like rhymes and stuff.
Exactly. But then he failed like one of his school grades like three times, because his intelligence is really intense here, but then over here he doesn't have the same intelligence. This is the other anomaly about autistic people, is often we have huge intelligence in one area and then really none in the other. And it's, again, very confusing to live with, especially if you don't know. So that's kind of, again, very broad summary.
Surface level,
of autism. And we can go into different factors about autism in other episodes, as we always say. If you have any other questions, let us know on social media. Submit us a question in our link tree. We've got a Google form there if you want to know more. But that's kind of a very vague approach to what autism is and our experiences. And just bear in mind that, we're two white women who are quite privileged, and we're high maskers, and our experience is completely different to anyone else's.
Coming from our lens, obviously, only a person comes from their own lens, but coming from our own lens. So if that doesn't resonate with you, then that's totally fine. And
exactly.
Sorry, we can't represent everyone. I wish we could, but that's just not how it works. So I hope at least some people relate to us.
I hope so too. And just remember that these stereotypes that like Rain Man or someone who doesn't talk and is bad with friends, that is not autism. It might be one manifestation of it.
It can be a manifestation.
But even if you're good with people, I was good with people, and I am good with people, and I'd fooled myself into thinking, I'm so great with people, I can't be autistic. No. I just taught myself how to be good with people. Yeah. And I've taught myself how to do small talk. I don't enjoy it, but I know how to do it.
From the day he was born, from the day you were born almost, or from the day you could speak, you were mimicking mum and dad, and therefore you got reinforced by, you're so good with Ellie. So good with people, Ellie. At like 2 years old, and kids become what they are told.
Yeah. So I then lived up to that.
Yeah, she lived up to that.
And then ended up really exhausted. Because at the end of the day, I realized, oh my gosh, people actually exhaust me. Even though I'm good at it, I don't actually always enjoy it. And it actually is at the cost of me and my mental health. Yeah, and obviously we can see that for what it is now. But at the time, obviously, like back 30 years, Jesus, you old fart. Thanks, mate. 32, actually.
I'm 30. Yeah. Even the research back then, what am I saying? I'm just saying that we're saying this now in hindsight with 32 years on that. Obviously, our parents, you appeared to be
absolutely fine,
absolutely great with people. So therefore, why wouldn't they praise you? Because our parents were they praised us a lot, which is great. And so where the frick was they going with that?
Who knows? I don't know. Hey, that's what it's all about. It's just starting to talk and then seeing where it takes us. Thanks for listening. Let us know if you want us to talk about anything else. And next week, we will start diving into the combo of AuDHD, the differences in autism and ADHD, and how that neurotype, autism and ADHD, look completely different to just the single ones. So again, we're coming at it from another lens. We're not just autistic, and we're not just ADHD.
Yeah, and the contradictions of it.
Yeah,
so it's crazy.
It's crazy. So we'll chat about that next week.
That is
thanks
crazy.
For listening.
Thank you.
See you later.
See you later.
Give us a rating.
Give us a rating.
And follow us on social media.
Please. Sorry.
Love you. Okay,
bye. Cheers.